Alright, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Safely Extreme podcast for the week of May 2nd, 2021. I'm, of course, Josh Bycer, and my co host, as always, from Nexus Games, Sharky.
Hello, everybody, and I do have one piece of exciting news before we get into this, and that is we have a playtestable version of Neon Continuum that we had played in our last dev chat. So
Hashtag Neon Continuum. Hashtag Neon Continuum pay to win. There we go. Everyone's
pay to win Neon Continuum.
There we go. Okay, everyone started spamming that in Shark's chat now. Alright, but as always, we have another game industry or game dev topic to discuss this week. And for this one, thank you, Soren. For this week, we are going to be talking about when good games still end up failing. And this is, unfortunately, I guess, a very melancholy topic. I think we're officially entering spring now, or no, we're entering like the summer season. So it's a very unfortunate, depressing topic, but it is one that we unfortunately have to talk about sometimes.
So what you're saying is spring has already sprung.
There you go. So, when we talk, we've had discussions before about when games fail. We certainly have said this a whole lot. But, unfortunately, one of the challenges of game development and even learning about game design is knowing why something fails. And it's easy to look at bad games. Again, there is a slew of low-budget, very poorly made games on Steam. Asset flips 2 asset flips, games that are just, there's just no real way this game was going to succeed. But the games that we're going to talk about today, they had a lot of time and effort put into them, but they still end up doing badly. And this is, I think, the important thing you have to understand for anyone watching this. You can do everything right. You can make a great game, and it can still fail.
Exactly. And games that, there's this thing with games. The key thing, the algorithm to life as a game development, and it has the largest impact to whether you'll succeed or fail. And that is a thing called risk management.
Mm-hmm.
And what risk management does is, like, you can never 100% guarantee a success. But you can certainly cut off parts, things, methods, all kinds of different things that will lead to a likelihood of failure, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You eliminate as many as those, and that's what risk management is, so that when you actually do launch your game, with as many of those cut out as possible, it means you stand the best chance that game could have possibly stood, because you lowered the amount of risk that it has to fail.
It's what I think we've used the analogy before about Russian roulette. When you use risk management or risk mitigation, you are taking bullets out of the chamber. When you don't do it, you are adding more bullets to the chamber. And
kind of. Well, you're not really adding more, because the chamber's already full to begin with.
But there are things that, unfortunately, developers can do that can make things worse for them.
Oh, yeah. You can do the opposite of risk management and do risk, what do you call that? Not risk creation, but...
That's when you use 2 guns for Russian roulette at the same time.
Dual wielding. Yeah, we'll call it,
Dual wielding risk.
We'll call it dual wielding risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's when you go and do stupid things, like tell people, don't buy my game, and, all kinds of other stuff.
Somebody right now is suing Valve.
Yeah.
Or when you go on Twitter and say, I want to go kill Gabe Newell. That was a really fun marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm. Or when you tell your fans to screw off.
Mm-hmm.
That's adding a second gun at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you like scream and issue death threats at Game Newell, that's adding like 3 more guns.
Mm-hmm.
You have like 4 other people pointing guns at you at the same time that you're doing in Russian roulette. That's extreme Russian roulette.
Exactly.
But another point about this, and as Shark said, what we talk about is not going to magically make your game work. As we said, you can do everything right, and there's always going to be at least one bullet in the chamber, unfortunately.
Yep, and you need to get it down to as few bullets as possible in those chambers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how that's your best chance at succeeding, because if it's a in their Russian roulette gun for game development, there's probably 1,000 bullets in the first gun.
Yeah, and
so you'll be lucky if you can get it down to only 500 bullets, out of 1,000.
And here's the thing: there are going to be developers who succeed despite doing everything wrong. That they'll have 999 bullets in the chamber, and they'll still win.
And they'll have like 20 guns pointed out at them, and they'll still win.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also there are also people out there that have been struck by lightning with 3 times within 10 minutes, and then finish walking to the gas station, pull a lotto ticket, win $1 million, and on the way home they get struck by lightning 3 more times, and then they get home and they release a game that succeeds wildly. You know what I mean? But that is statistically impossible. It happens, but it's statistically impossible. But it happens.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, when we have these discussions, I do think a lot of people have trouble comprehending when we talk about a game failing. Because some of the games that we're going to talk about, games we'll probably talk about in the future, they're good games. They have reviews. And I think it's important for us to clarify, what do we mean when a game fails? Because some people will say that, if the game gets at least 100 reviews, it wins. If the game's on Steam, it's a success. For longtime fans of mine, I'm about to utter the same words that I always say. That one of the phrases that I hate to hear is when developers give the advice, just make video games. If you just keep making games, you'll just automatically succeed. It doesn't work like that.
It used to work like that
15 years
ago in a completely different market. But in today's market, that is the number one way to fail.
Yeah, because if you keep making games but not learning from them, you're just going to be spinning around the mud.
Yeah.
Or swimming in the ocean in a circle.
Yeah. And you don't get no credits for doing donuts in the ocean. That's easy.
Yeah. So, when we say a game has failed, and especially for today's topic, what we're talking about is its impact on the market. So this goes beyond the reviews. This goes beyond the quality of the game. This is basically, did this game make a dent? Do people know about it?
And, I posted some of the games in my Discord before we started, and nobody had heard of any of the games on the list except for one, which was my last game.
I was about to say, they haven't heard of Prometheus. There's a problem.
Yeah.
And this is that weird thing, and it's something that I run into a lot when I talk to general consumers, that the stuff that we cover and the stuff that we talk about, very few people sometimes even know what we're saying. I remember 10 years ago when I was still working at Comcast, and I said, oh yeah, I'm on Steam, and everyone goes, what the hell is Steam? And these were gamers. He was talking about, he wanted to play something like Left 4 Dead, and well, you have to get Steam. And they looked at me like, what's Steam? If you say that today to a gamer, what's Steam? they're going to wonder, are you a mole? Are you a plant?
Mm. But what we're talking about, to Soren, is it's not that the game devs failed. I meant maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Maybe there's this gray area, and that'll pretty much be the case in all cases, kind of thing, to where they may have failed to do everything they could, but they didn't fail in 99.9% of the ways. Because remember that you can never get rid of all the bullets out of the chamber. You can only get rid of most, or a lot, rather. Maybe not even most, And it depends. Ask a lawyer.
Yeah, and like what Shark just said, these games can do 95% of everything right. They could even do more things right than the games that succeed that did things wrong. But for one reason out of another, it just didn't work. As we've said, there's a very wide line between becoming the next, Among Us, the next Cuphead, and becoming the next, unfortunately, A Valley Without Wind, or Godhood, or any of the other games that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, Among Us is an interesting concept because that was one of the ones that did fail. It's not on our list, but that game failed. That game failed so hard. And then 2 years later, they walked out in the lightning storm. They got hit by 3, lightning bolts.
And then a unicorn
got
came
a
and hit them.
Lotto ticket, then came home, got struck by 3 lightning on the way home, got home, and all of a sudden the game that failed 2 years ago was all of a sudden succeeding wildly.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not prepared for it. And they are draining every bit of fan base they got lucky with in that, luck they struck.
Yeah. And again, this is that important point for people to understand. That you can have a breakout success or a long-term success, but your game would still fail.
Mm-hmm.
And this is especially true of live service games. And a very important point, we are not talking live service games for the show today, because that is, a completely different universe.
Mm-hmm. Is it in the Marvel universe?
Now, it could be more in the DC right now. Depending on who you talk to, of course. But yeah, like Among Us, again, that was legitimately a failure.
For 2 years before they hit that lucky streak, and
And I don't think they understood why their game blew up.
Yeah.
And
when it blew up, they were caught off guard.
Mm-hmm. And you see, this is what we talk about with risk mitigation. It's about understanding why a game can fail, just as understanding why a game could succeed.
Mm-hmm.
As we said before, there's people out there who still don't know why Darkest Dungeon did so well. Surely it was just being brutally difficult and having Lovecraftian elements. Nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, they, injustice and all that other stuff could be caused, and not enough marketing, and all that could be a cause, but it could also not be a cause, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It depends, once again.
Ask a lawyer.
Yep.
And the thing is one of the leading causes, one of the most leading causes for failure in today's market. And keep in mind, that's today's market. Tomorrow is going to be different. So, it depends. Ask a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the leading causes right now is that basically, if your aesthetics are not in point, then everything you do marketing-wise, every image you put on Steam, every GIF you put on Steam, everything that you decorate your store page with, is going to be bad because the art is not, or maybe it won't be bad, but it won't be good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
Steam there's a very high requirement on visual aesthetics. Like you can make good art and it will be very, very bad for Steam kind of thing. It's got to be really, really good. Now, then, do we mean that it's got to cost you $1 million to make the art? No, it could be something very, very simple with simple boxes and shapes. I mean, Just Shapes and Beats does that very thing. Having very basic shapes for everything, and a very simplistic art style that there's basically nothing to it. Mm-hmm. But in that art style, in the aesthetic style, there is so much depth to it, and it looks so visually pleasing that it meets that bar. So, we don't, by visual aesthetics, we don't mean that it's got to be high budget art, but it has to have an artist work on it, because if an artist is not working on it, then you can make something very similar to Just Shapes and Beats, but not be an artist, not have that artistic flair to it, and it will be absolutely horrible. You will not get anywhere with it. So, if you're not an artist, be sure that you have an artist that knows what they're doing on the team. Yep. And outsourcing art is going to be tricky if you don't know art yourself. Mm-hmm. So you really need an artist, not just, a programmer trying to get by or anything else. You need an artist, because the thing is if you don't have art that's on point, then all of your Steam page, all your store page, all that stuff is going to go, wayside kind of thing, because you're going to be repelling people from your store. Mm-hmm. As well as anytime you reach out in marketing, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's to, journalists or whatever, they're going to see those images and they're going to be like, no thanks.
Why would I want to cover this game?
Mm-hmm. Why would I want to look at this game? Why would I want to check it out? Because this looks like crap. Mm-hmm. Now, there will be some people that will, be willing to, but the fact is getting the few exceptions to the rule is not something to be proud of or something to be happy about.
Is also very difficult. Like I cover just about anything people send to me these days. But again, I'm just one YouTuber. I'm not, I have not reached PewDiePie levels yet. And even then, as we've said before, just because PewDiePie covers your game doesn't magically make it a success. Mm. So before we get talk about a few of our examples, one other thing I think we need to mention or clarify: when do we consider a game to be a failure? Or actually more specifically, what do we consider to be the metric of success for today? So, as I've said, I talked about this in previous posts and videos. The amount of reviews a game brings in is a strong metric for success. It's not the only metric, but it is a big one. And I think, I guess for you, Shark, what we're going to be talking about, what would you consider to be, I guess, the average number of reviews that you expect a successful game to get?
I wouldn't say I have an average. Mm-hmm. I would say it depends on the order. But mm-hmm. What I would say is that the game needs to make enough money, and we're talking about after Steam's fees, after taxes, which 50% of your money is gone right there. Mm-hmm. So if you make, let's say $2,000 on Steam. My last game made $1,400. Let's go with the $1,400. My last game made $1,400 on Steam. Mm-hmm. And when I got the check from Steam in my bank account, it said $700 on it, because 50% of it, basically, I think it was like 50. I think it was actually 48 or 47%, but basically 50% of it went to Steam and taxes, base level taxes. And keep in mind that money I had to pay more taxes on, mm-hmm. and and whatnot. So that money that you have after all the taxes and everything has been paid, then you should be able to pay yourself and anybody else who worked on it a reasonable salary. I'm not talking about working for free. I'm not talking about working for really cheap. I'm talking about a reasonable salary. So if you worked on that game for, full time for, 3 years, it should definitely earn you more than what you would earn out of the manager at McDonald's for that same time period in those same hours.
Yeah. Now,
and keep in mind that it should be a good bit more than a manager at McDonald's, because the managers at McDonald's is pretty low pay. But we're setting the bar really low here, with that one. So at least that amount of money for everybody on the team.
Yeah.
And that is going to be a good bit of money, because believe it or not, that the price to pay somebody is really expensive. If you think about it, I mean, you probably look at a yearly salary of what, $20,000 to $40,000 for a person, right? And then you talk about 3 years. That's like $60,000 on the bottom end. That's what is that? 120 on the top, on the top end, and then you have like 4 people working for you. So now you got that 60 to 120 times 4 people, and now you're talking about huge money.
Yeah.
And then when you do payroll, you have to actually pay taxes off of all those, which you have to basically pay. I think it cost about 30% higher than that. So let's just say that final bill is like 500,000, right? $500,000. So then you add the 30% to it, and now it's 800,000. So that game had to make 800,000 in order to realistically break even. And then you want to more than break even, because you want to have something extra so you could go with a bigger scope and grow as a studio for your next game. So you would want to make 900,000 or $1 million on that kind of thing. And that's with a very small team. And so, and that's going to take a good bit of reviews, because you're going to have to make more than twice that to get past the gross and everything else. So, you're talking about a very small team needs to make, $2 million. I mean, it's not a minuscule team, because that would probably be like 6-7 members. But a 6 or 7 member team on 3 years probably needs to make about $2 million gross.
Yeah, like if you remember that game Too Dark, that was done by developer Frederick Renaud from Alone in the Dark, he did a Kickstarter for, I forget how much it was. I think he wanted to fund a 12-person team for 4 to 5 years on $200,000. And apparently he woefully underestimated his budget there.
Well, I'm just going to call you Z. Your name's too hard to pronounce. Z is saying, something that I would say, yeah, you need to make that much money, but I wouldn't say that would be a success. I would say that'd be hanging in there. There's a difference between, hanging in there by the skin of your teeth and actually being a success,
And to build what Shark's saying about reviews, like this is kind of where I was coming in, looking at things from a review point of view there. That in one of my earlier posts, I talked about this idea of measuring the market success of a game. Because you can have, your game could break even, but if it only broke even because 50 people actually know about you in the world, then you're not really in a success. And
if you only broke even because you didn't spend any money on it, that's not.
Yeah, and this is why
that's technically breaking even, but that's not realistically breaking even, because you didn't pay yourself. I mean, time is money. So if you broke even because off of 50 people because that amount of money
Mm-hmm.
was enough to pay for the entire development time because you developed it by yourself and it only took you, what, a week or two to make it,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, that would be a success. But, fact is, that probably wouldn't be a good, yeah, I could guarantee you that's not going to be a good game.
Yeah, and this is why financial success is not the only measure here when we talk about game success. As
Mhm.
Shark said a minute ago, you want to be able to keep building games, you want to keep growing. And that is where you need to consider a market success. As I said in the post I made a few weeks ago, that in my mind, for a game to be considered a 100% success, it needs to have at least 10,000 reviews on Steam, 10,000 positive reviews on Steam. That is, that's A plus material. And I would say if you want to be considered at least, you want a feather in your cap.
Well, that may not even be a success there, for that matter.
Hmm?
That may not even be a success because if they're a larger studio kind of thing, then that may not be enough to break them even.
Yeah. But again, I don't think we're really focusing on major studios. Again, you can't just be everyone can't just be Nintendo and succeed.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, I don't know if that would succeed with like Oxygen Not Included with a Clay game,
Let's see. But I know Invisible Ink only had about like 4,000 reviews last time I checked. But you should.
I think it failed though, didn't it?
But again, though, it's hard to know budgets without actually talking to somebody at the company. And you can have, like what Jark just said, and this is another point. One game's success is another game's failure. Somebody could be, over the moon with getting, 5,000 copies sold. Another developer, that is bankruptcy for them.
Yeah.
Next says when Nintendo don't. Thank you. And
yeah, I know. I would have certainly been a lot more happy. Actually, no, I would have been more over the moon with 5,000 reviews on, not 5,000 sales, but 5,000 reviews on my last game, Chromasia, that failed horribly, because that would have put it right around where it needed to be, because we're aiming for 40,000 sales kind of thing.
And again, the number of reviews you get is not equal to the number of people who buy your game. More people will buy your game than will ever leave you reviews. I think we can assume, or we can kind of extrapolate that the number of reviews, you should maybe get, 3 to 5 times the number of people who actually bought the game? Or is it a little bit more?
No. In 2018, and in a good bit of time before that, basically you would get one review for every 50 purchases. So if you had 10 reviews, you would have 500 sales kind of thing. Where in, I think it was late 2019, that changed to one review for 30 purchases. I've been hearing rumors, and I don't know if there's any truth to them, but I've been hearing rumors that it's turning to 1 to 20, but that's just rumors at this point, and nothing confirmed or anything. But keep in mind that those numbers are likely to shift if they haven't already shifted, kind of thing. But it's definitely not 1 to 5. It's 1 to 30 confirmed last time I checked.
Yep.
And a rumor of 1 to 20 next, coming up.
Yeah, but again, the point is, you want as many reviews to your game as possible. So, the games that we're going to talk about, let me double check here before I say this, neither one of them broke 1,000 reviews. And if you can't even break 1,000 reviews, your game just did not impact the market. And that's not good.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's not a good game.
It means
that things did not work out.
And it means that you do not have a sizable enough fan base to kind of, be your own marketing machine. Like, when we look at studios like Red Hook Games, Kid Fox, Clay, and some of the other Super Giant being another big example, their fan bases are big enough that we've talked about before, this idea of clout. That when you're a big enough studio, your name gives weight to your games. And these would be examples of this. That
And when you
can
have that weight, when you have that clout, that's when you put your name at the beginning of a
Yep.
trailer. But when you don't have that, that's what you absolutely want to avoid. Because nobody cares about, Crappy Ape Studios LLC. But a lot of people are going to clamor when they see Clay Entertainment or Kit Fox or any of those others.
Mm-hmm.
So only if they're clamoring about it should it be the start of your trailer.
Yep. And your first game, statistically speaking, is not going to be that game.
Well, it might, but you ideally don't want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and this is going to sound counterintuitive, you ideally want your first game to fail. Your first commercial game. Because you want to, when it fails, you want to go in there and examine why it failed. Find out, these things. And what Josh and I are going to tell you are just very surface level things for the most part. And, there's a lot more to this kind of thing. Where the fact is that, studios that succeed on their first game often fell on everyone after that.
Yeah. And here is a point that somebody's going to bring up. I know they are. Red Hook Studios, their first game was Darkest Dungeon. So are you telling me that they did things wrong? You see, again, the point is with Darkest Dungeon is that Chris and Tyler, I think combined, had over 15 to 20 years of game dev experience before they made Darkest Dungeon.
So it wasn't their first commercial game.
Exactly.
It may have been the first for the studio, but it was probably the 8th or 20th for both of them.
Yes.
So it still was not considered their first commercial game.
Mm-hmm. And to Will's comment, yeah, and we've seen developers. Yeah, exactly, Pony. We've seen developers who have succeeded without hits. Jake Burkett's GDC talk is a very illuminating one. That he has been in this industry for, I think, over 15 years now, and probably most of you have never heard of any of his games. And that is okay. If you can earn enough money and succeed, and you can keep doing it, more power to you. But if you try to put the cart before the horse and say, okay, my last game sold 500 copies. You know what? I'm going to spend, 10 years on my next game, and I want to sell 3 million copies. I can do that, right?
Oh, yeah, that's easy. It's just first you make a game, question mark, then you succeed.
Then you're the next Nintendo.
Yeah, it's just like that to become Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every developer in the past, they're now Nintendo.
Nice.
They're there's
Nintendo
5
Continuum.
billion Nintendos right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not just one. There's 5 billion of them. It may look like one, but there's 5 billion of them.
There we go.
You just see, the thing is every Mario, remake, or every time they post Mario 1 on a different console, that is a different studio right there. Every one of those was released by a different Nintendo studio.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And what we're talking about, the first measure of success is earning enough money to keep going. That is, square one, step one, plan A. What you want
and
to
of course, the lower cost, the cheaper it is to run your studio, the easier that is to accomplish.
Yeah, if you're a 2-person studio versus, let's say, a 20-person studio, that is a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier to balance that budget.
Yeah, and if you're willing and able to work for free at full time, then that makes it even easier.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of developers stop at that metric. They don't think about, okay, how do I grow my audience? How do I grow my fan base? And as we've said before, if 30 people bought your first game, you don't want only 15 people to buy your second game. And this is what Shark was saying about earlier, about understanding or hopefully having at least one failure. Because what we've seen from a lot of developers who do blow up is that the first game does, amazingly well. And then not learning why it did well, their second game only does, let's say, this well. And then it's just a downward slope here. Because they're not understanding why their games are succeeding or failing. And unfortunately, they are burning all their goodwill and fan base that they've earned.
Yeah. And had they not had that fan base, it would have been an instant fall, probably, for most of them. It would be just like success, failure, flatline, rather than taper down.
And unfortunately, I don't know if Among Us may fall into that example soon.
Yeah, it's definitely heading in that direction, sadly.
And my big example of this, sadly, is Arkham Games. Excuse me. That the success of AI Wars has carried that studio for over a decade. And Chris has talked about before about just how each one of his games has failed for different reasons and nearly cost him the studio.
Mm-hmm. And to Nikita's point about, marketing is the biggest stopper. Well, the thing is, we talked about earlier about how aesthetics is very, very key to everything, especially, when you comes to marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is definitely, part of the aspect. And the other aspect is when you're talking about social platforms, there's algorithms that you have to feed into, and you have to learn how to maximize those algorithms. And it's very, very hard to, because I'm currently learning how to maximize YouTube and teaching Josh how to do it, and all that. But, then the other aspect is that even if you have 1,000 wish list, 10,000 wish list, or whatever on Steam, you should watch our other show about Steam store page reviews, because here's the thing: is even if you get all those wish lists, there's no guarantee that any of them is going to buy. Because on my last game, we had 127 sales, I think, 100 of which were right at the last minute, because I was removing the delisting the game from Steam. So, like, realistically, you could say that they only got 27 sales, kind of thing. Now then, with that, do you know how many wish lists we had? We had 1,000, over 1,000 before we released. Do you know how many of those wish listers converted into a sale? 0. There was 0 conversions. All those wish lists were for nothing. They were completely useless.
But for somebody else,
that was the Steam page, store page design.
And for somebody else, they could convert on that. Again, there's never really one metric that is only going to say you succeed or you fail. It's a lot of things that have to go right. So, while my nose is stuffing up as we speak, are you ready to talk about our 2 examples today?
Well, let's go softly over all the examples that we have, and then we'll go over the 2.
Okay.
So,
let me pull up the list here on my side as well. Okay,
so
I'm ready.
One game, the first game on the list, is one I used in my thumbnail, Rise of Slime, and it was a really solid game. Josh and I really liked that one, and it was in early access. We were looking for it to go big and everything, and it was a deck builder roguelike along the lines of Slay the Spire kind of thing, and Monster Train.
Had really great aesthetics too.
Yeah, it had really great aesthetics, and it's that one's a really hard one to figure out why it failed, kind of thing, and
Hopefully, in the next few minutes, we'll try and piece it together and we take a more thorough look at it.
Yeah, I think it had 35 reviews or something like that on it.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible. I mean, I can only feel for those developers because from the baseline it looks like they did a lot of things, if not everything, right, and they still failed, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we'll look at it in great detail later.
Yeah. The second game, Octogeddon, this is on my thumbnail as well. This is from a developer with a very huge name, George Fan, the creator of Plants vs. Zombies. And it was a delightful game. Would I consider it to be the best game I ever played? No. But I think it did more things right than it didn't. And I think it's at less than 300 reviews. Let me see. 416 reviews.
And it's from a big name. The guy behind Plants vs. Zombies. I mean, anybody here heard of Plants vs. Zombies?
Mm-hmm.
Of those people, how many have heard of Octogeddon? Probably everybody raised their hand for Plants vs. Zombies, and probably one or two of you raised your hands for Octogeddon, if that many. And probably the only one or two of you, because Josh and I have talked about it a lot.
Yeah. And I can think of another game that I even think about for this list that I'll share with Shark after the stream here. But yeah, you can have a game that does really well mechanically or have this big name behind it. And guess what? It still fails.
Mm-hmm.
And to Nikita's point, we'll probably be talking about that point when we talk a little more in depth about it. Let's see. The next game on the list, Vision Software said. Another one that probably the only two people who really heard of it is Shark and I. Because we talked to the developer about it.
Yeah, other Shark, Yeah.
Sharks stick together.
Yeah, and it's very clear what the main cause of death on that one was, and it's the aesthetics. The aesthetics were not bad, but not bad is not good enough. It's got to be. It can't even be just good. It's got to be really, really good, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not that. And because that game was so well designed.
Yeah.
And one of Josh's favorite Metrovanias of all time, if not his favorite.
Yep, and it still failed horribly.
It's got 20 or 30 reviews on it?
Last time I checked, I think it was at 23. Let's see what it's at right now. 35.
35.
It did better than what we expected, but guess what? That is still not a success.
That is still that's not even a failure. That's still a horrible, horrible train wreck of a failure.
Mm-hmm. The other game was Super High Door from Loco Malito, who, if you know that name, you probably already bought that game.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know that name.
Mm-hmm. And Loco Malito has been in the indie space for a very long time. And unfortunately, his games have just not managed to basically break into the mainstream.
Mm-hmm. And it's spelled. How many reviews are on that one?
121. And it came out 4 years ago.
Ooh.
Yes.
That is a horrible, horrible train wreck of a failure, sadly.
Yep. And again, when we say failure here, we are not talking gameplay. Because I'm sure somebody's going to leave a comment saying, oh, Shark says the game sucks. It's an amazing game. You're just bad at it. That's the typical response when we criticize a game.
Yeah. Where I've never played it. It's a failure because of the sales. Because it's not keeping the development afloat. It's not even paying for itself, more or less paying for the next game after it. And next on the list, we have the old word of the day, Chromasia. My last game. And that one failed for many reasons. The main reason being the graphical aesthetics. So I know from firsthand how that feels with 14 reviews and 100% positive review score. My game failed, and it failed horribly, kind of thing. And a big part of it was the art aesthetics. there's definitely plenty of other issues with it because I've deep dived into it, and we could spend probably a 10-hour cast, if not longer, just talking about it, and all the things, all the little bits of things that went wrong with it, kind of thing. But the core issue was the art aesthetics. Had we changed the art aesthetics, just that one thing, it would have been a night and day difference.
Yeah.
Now, would he have succeeded? I don't know. But it would have.
You would have taken a few bullets out of the chamber, basically.
Yeah, compared to where it is now, it would be a wild success. But would that wild success by comparison be an actual success? And that's something we don't know. It's something we won't know for a while until I do a remake, which will be coming up at some point.
Yeah. Another game was Kalimba. And this one that we played on stream the other night is a really entertaining and unique platformer. Unfortunately, it sits right now at 331 reviews, and it came out in 2015. And it was also published by Xbox Game Studio, and I'm sure they were not happy with those sales.
Yeah, and the question is how much did the Xbox actually contribute into the lack of success? How good of a publisher were they to that game? And that's a good question. Now, Z's question, what was the last game? Are you referring to the Metrovania that could possibly be Josh's favorite? If so, that was Vision Soft Reset. If not, tell me what the gameplay or whatever, something about it that we said, so I can know which one it was that we were talking about. But I think it might have been Vision Soft Reset. You were talking about other Sharks game.
And again, even having a big name publisher does not guarantee success, because if the publisher doesn't do anything to help sell your game, you're in trouble. So I think with that, let me check our time. We are about 5 minutes. Well, we're about 50 minutes in. So do you want to do the deeper look at Octoged and Rise of the Slime now?
Yeah. Which one you want to hit up first?
I don't really have a preference, do you? Well, Rise of the Slime has fewer reviews.
Why don't we do Rise of the Slime first? Because that's the one that's really,
puzzling.
Yeah, puzzling.
All right, let me switch my UI here. Oh, yeah, there's going to be a
game view?
Yeah.
That's store page.
1 second here. I forgot that I need to
set that up.
Thankfully, it's very quick.
I'm planning on using that, but we'll use it.
I think it's important for people to see this.
Okay.
So here's the Rise of the Slime store page. So as you can see right here, lovingly, it has 53 reviews. And it came out, it was officially released in 2019. It's not out of early access yet.
Yeah, but it's coming out very, very soon, from what I've heard.
And here's the thing. Like, when Slay the Spire came out, when it was first released on Slay, or on early access, it did a lot better. Slay the Spire right now has over 77,000 reviews. If that's not a success, I don't know what is a success.
And the thing is this game had a publisher or PlayStack, which, from my understanding, is a decently somewhat popular publisher. I mean, they have apparently 13 games underneath their belt. Now, does that make them a good publisher? No. But does it make it a bad publisher? We don't know. But obviously this game didn't succeed for some reason.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the store page, or at least like the initial look at it, like, I'm not seeing really any like red flags.
Yeah, I mean, they have GIFs, they have quality banners, they have all that in there about this page. The thumbnail's rather put together nicely because everything frames the Rise of Slime text, and it definitely pops. And it has, it's very clear what it's a card game.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
to Chad's comment, yep, there are people who will not touch our early access. I'm sure a lot of people did not even, blink at Slay the Spire while it was in its early access. Same goes for Dead Cells or Darkest Dungeon.
yeah, the title card seems pretty good too.
It has unique banners.
Yep.
I
The
mean, like,
screenshots all look good.
this is like a really like for our weekly show for Thursday. This is a pretty high quality store page.
Yeah, we're not examining it right here, but I'd say this is probably an easy A.
It's close, yeah. I'll have to. I haven't really, I'm not giving like full attentive mode right now, but
Yeah, exactly.
nothing is like I'm looking at this page and nothing is screaming warning. Do not buy this game.
Yeah, I mean this may, if we did a review of this page, this may be our highest grade ever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is another important point. Look at the reviews. PC Gamer covered this game. Splattercat Gaming was, I think, one of the larger gaming YouTubers covered this game. I don't know who Gamer is.
Gamer, he's a gamer.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, this game didn't, it didn't release and then disappear. Like people looked at this game.
It was definitely marketed, at least to some extent. Because obviously there's a press release because PC Gamer, they were contacting YouTubers because, we have two of them here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they did at least some marketing.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are some negative reviews. But again, I would expect, like, with everything that's in this, that would have done more.
Mm-hmm.
What is
the review score?
It's very positive.
83%.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the best review score, but it's not a bad one.
Don't you need at least 80% to be considered very positive? Or is that
no? Steam has a very weird way they do that. Basically, as it requires a very minimum amount of reviews, quantity, as well as a percentage kind of thing. Because positive is the thing below very positive, I believe. And positive is what I got with 100%. You know what I mean?
Okay.
With 14 reviews. So it's both quantity and percentage.
I would say, I think one thing that probably hurt this game is the release date. This was released in 2019. And when did Slay the Spire actually... Slay the Spire was released in 2019 as well.
What month?
January. And this was released...
7-8 months apart.
But I think... And this is, I think, another point. The market also dictates success. And it's something that we've seen a lot of developers really struggle with. That when you start working on your game, there may be no other example of it in the market. When it comes out, it could be fully saturated by that point. Space Sim.
Yeah, I'm encountering that myself because, I started work on Neon Continuum back in, mid to late 2018. And I had never heard about Cyberpunk 2077 until I think it was about late 2019. Also, when rumors started going, and then I was like, "Oh crap!" And it was too late to course correct at that point.
And I think to Nikia's point, that's another really, unfortunately, it's a depressing point, but it's an accurate point. That you could have an amazing game. There may be 5 other amazing games in your same genre out there. Why should somebody give your game the time of day? How many FTL clones have we seen that were legitimately decent games? But why should I play them instead of FTL?
Yeah.
Also, I say that the GIF under Fiendishly Tactical is probably one of my favorite GIFs I think I've seen from a store page.
Oh wow, that is a really nice gift.
Yeah.
That is really nice. They really spent some work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is the challenge because if this is the scary and the sad part. I bet you if Rise of the Slime, in whatever form it was in early access, came out 1 year earlier, maybe even 5 to 6 months earlier, it could be in a far different place.
Oh yeah, like if it came out before Slay the Spire, it would probably be in the position that Slay the Spire is in right now, and Slay the Spire might be in the position where this game is.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly trade spots.
Now,
and possibly this might even, slay what even Slay the Spire did, kind of thing.
Now, the thing is that we don't know the marketing or the work behind the scenes the developer and the publisher has done. And that's the thing that, unfortunately, unless you actually talk to that studio or you're part of that studio, you are never going to understand.
Yeah, because we know at least some of it because there's reviews here on the page from that. They clearly did some kind of press release and clearly did some marketing kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know how much.
Where they did it at.
Well, actually, we know how effective it was. It wasn't very effective at all, but, we don't know how big the campaign was and how non-effective the entire campaign was kind of thing overall for how much quantity there was.
Yeah. And again, a lot, and we've said this before, and we need to stress this, so much needs to go right for a game to succeed. And very little has to go wrong for it to fail.
Yeah, I mean, everything I'm seeing here looks like they emptied out a lot of those chambers, if not all that they could, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But when they spun the Russian roulette kind of thing, they got bullet.
It's the XCOM look. You have a 90% chance to succeed and you still fail.
99%. And then you still fail. Yeah, it was literally one of those XCOM luck kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
From the look of everything we're seeing here. Because we're not seeing anything besides timing, which you really can't do much about. And
they're publishing Mortal Shell too. That's interesting.
Do I know?
The publisher is the one who published Mortal Shell, that Dark Souls game. Yeah, so I mean, this publisher doesn't sound like a novice.
Yep.
Maybe the price? Yeah, no, like Slay the Spire is like $25. This is $15.
This is $15. This is your standard indie at the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe partly early access and maybe part the timing of this game's being released as well.
Yeah. I don't really think early access really played a big part into it. But, I mean, this was just the example of a really unlucky, game where they did most or everything right kind of thing, and they still failed.
I can also tell you the algorithm is not helping this game at all. I had to type in Rise of the S to even have this game pop up.
Steam's burying it hard.
Yeah, it is completely buried by Tomb Raider. Arcanum, that's another one that we looked at. Like, it is not even, like, the 30th result here. Well, it's actually 5, 10, 15. It's the 16th result, but you have to know the name already.
Yeah, you would have to know. You would have to know the game before you could remotely find it on Steam.
That's another big topic about, getting your, where do people find your game from? Like, with a name like Rise of the Sun, even arguably a name like Slay the Spire, you're not finding that if you don't already know it. And the only way you're going to know it is if somebody you know talks about it.
Or Steam recommends it, or, shows it to you somehow.
Yeah.
And they actively hide your search results and everything else when you do not do well in your first time period, kind of thing. And you need to
And if you go down to more like this, guess what's the first game that pops up? Slay the Spire.
But you go to a Slay the Spire game, and you will not see this one pop up on there.
Yeah,
you'll see Monster Train and a whole bunch of other more successful game, because Steam is a cruel mistress. Steam will absolutely bury your game with no remorse.
We've said this before. Steam does not care about you. They care about the money your game brings in. They don't care about you.
Yeah.
Yep, and you are right. On the Slay the Spire, it recommends Monster Train. It recommends Trials of Fire. Across the Obelisk. I don't remember that one.
So Steam will happily, take people who are interested in your game and show them to different games that make a lot of money, but they will not happily take those games that make a lot of money and show them to your game that isn't making a lot of money.
I just want to say, on the Slay the Spire page, it promotes hating tactics, which is nice, but it also says the buying of Isaac. The buying of Isaac is just like Slay the Spire.
Yeah, see, that's the Steam algorithm. They favor money over anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stupid. It is literally stupid, because the fact is what does it matter if consumers pay $15 for this game or $15 for another game, because they're still getting $15, the percentage from the $15.
Yeah. And I do wonder, like, to Ziggo, to his comment there. No, I'm not. I'm not signed in right now, so just giving me random ones, Pony. I'm not searching visual novel there. But to Zako's comment about slime, that's another good point. When you type slime in, Slime Rancher comes up, or Dragon Quest Heroes. Yeah,
and Dragon Quest Heroes, Slime Edition.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a case where basically the biggest enemy in Rise of the Slime is Steam Store.
Now, if you type Slime Space Rise, you'll find it.
But how many people are going to do that?
Yeah, not very many.
Yeah.
There's apparently a free prologue for this game, too.
Yeah.
Let's look at the free prologue.
Yeah, so, like, again, I think this is one of those cases where a lot of outside factors just, like, doomed this game.
Looks like pretty much an identical store page.
Pretty much. Except it doesn't have... Oh, wait, it does have the reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I don't know.
And they even had a prologue, and a lot of people are, judging prologues as the next greatest thing and how that's going to make your game succeed. Well, it didn't make this one succeed, obviously, and they did pretty much everything right.
Yeah.
Everything that we can see, they did right.
Now, here, one other point I want to mention, then let me check our time. Yeah, we're about an hour 8 in. But one thing that it's important to mention, there is still the possibility this game could blow up and succeed. Again, it's being released, or it's officially coming out of early access in a few months. The developer and publisher may be planning a huge marketing blitz for right there. But
they hopefully are, because you should be if they aren't.
Yeah. And there's a chance that somebody may be watching this video 6 months, 12 months from now and going, what the hell are you guys talking about? Rise of Slime has like 800,000 reviews on Steam. You guys are idiots.
Yeah, in which case, look at this. Read them and weep. 53.
Uh-huh.
And
so,
it's, and today's date is this, May 21st, May 2021, on the 2nd. The 2nd of March, May of 2021.
So, things can certainly change, but the problem is that, as we've said over the course of this video and stream, you don't want Hail Mary plays to succeed for your studio. You want things to be consistent.
Well, you want Hail Marys to succeed. You just don't want to have to do the Hail Marys.
You don't want to rely on them, I think it's the better phrase.
Yeah.
Like,
if
you are succeeding, it's kind of like, as we said before with the Rush Roulette example, if you are winning with a 10% chance to succeed, yes, you won. You don't want to be succeeding every time at a 10% chance, because what happens that one time you don't succeed? You're in big trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I did a big Hail Mary on mine, and it did not work.
Mm-hmm.
So the initial didn't work, and the Hail Mary didn't work, and it was like, okay, well, we got to remove it from Steam, delist it.
Yeah.
And it was sad.
All right. So, with that, as a time check, we are definitely past our hour for the cast. Do you want to cover Octagon, or do you want to wrap things up here?
We can cover it, but keep it light.
All right, maybe like 5-minute max, you think?
Could go a little bit farther than that.
Okay.
But,
all right,
10 minutes. 10, 15 minutes.
All right, so
now, interesting, I type Octo, and Octogeddon pops up. Just off of Octo.
So does Octopath Traveler, which I'm thinking about picking up, too. And Octodad. There's a lot of games that have Octo starting with.
Yeah, so Steam has not completely buried this one.
Mm-hmm. But if you look at... Wait a minute, hopefully not. If you look at the review score, it has 416 reviews, which 416 is a lot higher than 53.
Yeah.
But
it's still very, very low.
Yeah.
Especially for the big name that it came from.
Which is, of course, George Finn. A comment from earlier that I think is very important about people know... They know the studio, they know the name. How many people know the developer behind it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it was a case, if the name was George Fann's Plants vs. Zombies, like Sid Meier's Civilization, this could be in a far different place.
Exactly.
And this store page, unfortunately, is not the best one.
Yeah, that About This game page is really really like a really low grade.
Yeah, and if you...
The title card is pretty low. The thumbnail's pretty good.
And if you look at the bottom of this About This game page here, the mark about this comes from the guy who created Plants vs. Zombies is the second to last bullet point. I don't know. I feel like that should have been like first or second.
Yeah, that should be in the trailer as the first thing from the original developer of Plants vs. Zombies.
Well, it's in the first second of the trailer.
Okay. But it doesn't put a voiceover to it. It should definitely put some voiceover to it.
I feel like this is one of those games where the aesthetics, I think, hurt it. What the hell is that trailer? Oh, they're like random trailers there. Like, when you look at the screenshots for this one, I just don't think this is like wowing people. What do you think?
I think it's definitely good aesthetics, but I don't think it's wowing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean there's nothing wrong with these graphics. They just feel like
it has like a
graphics.
Mobile look to it, I think.
I
think this game was released on mobile too.
Yeah, it just feels too mobile.
And again, a strong aesthetic kind of does a lot of the legwork for your game by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, what's it suggesting? Oh, and it's suggesting Slay the Spire. Anything that has roguelike. Wait, does it have a roguelike tag? It has action roguelike. Anything that even comes close to the word rogue will probably have Slay the Spire. It's more like this page.
Yeah. And it is one of those things like the Twitch algorithm that, it helps the people who have all the money and success become more successful or more money. Mm-hmm. And everybody who does not have the money or success, it helps them go poor quicker. So it is really, Steam is really a platform where the big succeed and the small fail. So in order to succeed on Steam, you have to come out hitting so hard that you're hitting harder than the ones that have succeeded, so that you become somebody that they recommend and you keep on succeeding.
Yep. And it is that safely extreme. You have to be an unknown major success, basically.
I don't know if that would be safely extreme, but it would be extremely hard.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it is, unfortunately, an unfair reality that, again, once we've said this before, that success breeds success, or success leads to further success. That Slay the Spire did ridiculously well, and they are now set. The same for Red Hook. Let me see. Dead Cells. Yep. I wonder what Dead Cells review score is at. Almost 65,000 reviews. So Dead Cells succeeded.
Mm-hmm. And every time a game succeeds in a big way like that, is when Steam is going to keep on recommending that game.
Yeah.
They don't care if there's a better game. They don't care if there's a different game that is similar to it. They're not going to recommend it.
Yep, Ori has 61,000 reviews.
Now then, they'll put lesser known. I mean, when you first release, they'll put your game on the front page and whatnot. This is your. Actually, they may not even put it in the front page. They'll put it in a shortened version of the front page, because if you look at the front page, you have to click. Like it'll release, say new releases, and it'll list things from like the last month or something that are the top sellers of that month, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then you have to click. I think you can scroll down farther, and then you can see like today's releases, and it will show just the top ones, and then you have to hit a little arrow to open it up, and then and it won't even show all of them, and then you have to show all kind of thing, which would take you to a completely different page. So like even your first day releases that they quote unquote promote, they're very, very minimum of that.
Yeah, but again, as we've said, one of the things I think we've seen is that Steam doesn't create the success. Your game needs to be a success, and then Steam will cultivate it and grow it further. And
maybe.
Yeah, sometimes. But yeah, like if your game doesn't do well, you are dead to Steam.
They're not going to help you grow. They're going to purposely help you shrink.
Mm-hmm. And even if you do everything right, if the market doesn't respond to your game's still going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate.
And that's the reason why it is so important to have your Steam page on point. Mm-hmm. Like Slime did.
But even then, that may not be enough.
Yep. Even if you have your Steam page on point, even if you have your Steam page on point, even if you have your game on point, even if you have your aesthetics on point, you can still fail, because that's what happened with Slime.
And Chad's comment there is perfect. Steam amplifies success. It's the same for YouTube. It's the same for Twitch. It's the same for anything that's kind of social media or consumer driven.
Well, actually, I would say it's more for Twitch, less for YouTube. Because YouTube is more, less being a success and more pandering to their algorithm.
Mm-hmm. And to Pony's comment, well, if it goes on the Game Wisdom Show, I'm going to break it.
What's that?
If a game goes on the Game Wisdom Show, does it die? But this is the sad reality for a lot of this discussion. We are, I think, right at time as well. So, to wrap things up, so much needs to go right beyond just a good game. And again, we can't see the work that went on behind the scenes for Octagon or Rise of the Slime or Dead Cells, or pick any game that's either a massive success or a massive failure. Some developers have to do a lot, and they will barely break even. Others have to do very little, and they could succeed majorly.
However, we can see completely behind the scenes, and by we, I mean I can see perfectly behind the scenes of a game called Chromatia, the old word of the day, because I made that one that fell, kind of thing.
Yeah, and
so I know, kind of what I know everything that happened there, and I and when I say I know it, I didn't even know it when it happened. You know what I mean? I knew it when I took a outside look of everything I could to deeply examine why it failed 6 months after it failed. Kind of thing. And, even from the inside view, I didn't know why it failed.
Yeah.
From the outside, now that I've fully examined the outside as much as I could, I know a lot of reasons why it did fail. But that doesn't mean, even if I cover all those things why it failed, that it will succeed.
Yeah. And I pulled up Jake Burgett's latest game, Ancient Enemy. From Grey Alien, and he sits at about 238 reviews on Steam. So for him, I'm sure that game succeeded financially for him, because he is very good. Again, he's been around long enough to know how to budget and work on his game. As a market success, I don't think it succeeded.
Oh no.
And like we've said, success is not only about money. It is about building a name and a reputation for your studio. When we look at something like Clay Entertainment, for instance, Auction Not Included is at almost 61,000 reviews. That is, again, a massive success. And that is an example of a studio that, again, Clay has almost carte blanche to announce a game, and people are going to get excited about it. It's the same thing we say with Nintendo. Nintendo can put up a cardboard cutout or a cardboard box that says, new Mario game coming, I don't know, and they'll probably get a few 100,000 pre-orders on it.
No, they could just put up a cardboard box with nothing on it. Or with just an M on it, and people will absolutely go nuts over it.
Oh yeah, the Nintendo Labo. Yeah, they did do a cardboard box, and people bought it. Yeah.
Really?
They completely did that.
Well, we proved the point.
Yeah. So again, all you have to do is just release a cardboard box and say you're Nintendo, and you'll be rich and famous.
Exactly.
I still never looked into that. I was debating it, and then, again, it appeared, and then it disappeared completely.
I was super interested in it myself. Because I was like, oh man, wait till the makers get a hold of this with like the 3D printing and everything, where they just throw the cardboard boxes out and they just 3D print everything, and then they integrate this stuff and make the craziest shit, But then Nintendo locked everything down, and it was like, oh, you just screwed over everybody that was really going to support your game.
Yeah. And like we've said, if you can get that one success, even if, it's a game that you didn't even expect it to succeed, like with Among Us, that gives you a huge position to grow from. But you need to be able to grow from it. you can have a failure, or even a game that doesn't succeed as well as the other ones. Again, Clay has Invisible Ink and Hot Lava, that while they were good games, they did not get 60,000 reviews. I can guarantee you that much.
Yeah,
but,
and then there's other developers that have failed many games, like the FNAF developers. Mm-hmm. Man, how many failed games did he have before FNAF?
19 years worth of failed games, I believe.
And I think it was something like a few hundred, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So he had a few hundred failed games before he finally learned enough to be able to succeed, and did enough to get lucky to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and again, if you want to succeed as a game studio, you have to be able to keep growing. If you don't care about money, if you're happy with 50 people buying your game that you release maybe one every 8 to 12 months, more power to you. But what we're talking about is the studio success. We were talking about making game development your livelihood.
Yeah, and to Pony's point, it doesn't, it is a success, because it's it doesn't matter if you like the game. I personally do not, but it is a success.
Yep,
and that's undeniable.
Yep, I'm not.
And it's not going to change that it's a success.
Yeah, I don't like the FNAF games myself, but guess what? If they can at least pull in, an average of 5,000 reviews per game, that's a success.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if we like it or not.
And Chad made a point earlier that you can't just have shitty store pages, and that's exactly the reason why we do our other show, Indie Inquiries, on
Thursdays.
At 2 p.m. Central Time.
Oh, yes.
3 p.m. Josh Time. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's probably more like 3:30 Josh Time, because Josh is always late.
No, I think that's like 10:30 Josh Time. But we recommend going on there and submitting your games, and you getting onto that show, and so we can help you make your Steam page better. And hopefully not break it. But we, despite being earlier than normal our shows, we went early late this week for our podcasts. So let us wrap things up for tonight. Thank you so much for everyone watching this live or recorded. As Shark said, we are always looking for game submissions for our Thursday shows. If you want to catch these shows live, they are held Sundays starting around 4:30 ET on our respective channels, and you'll find links to all of our social medias, Discords, all that fun social media stuff in the description down below.
And join our Discords. You can join my Discord, and once a month we have a dev chat where we get into voice chat and talk about Neon Continuum, our current game, and we now get to play it when we do that too. So you can join and get your hands on it, and it's I think it's, I'm aiming for that, that thing we just talked about a game that is so good, so impactful, that Steam is going to have to recommend it.
And call it pay to win, too.
Yeah, it's going to be very pay to win. And that's a joke, by the way, for anybody new.
Yep. So, with that said, do liking, smashing, subscribing, do all that other fun social media stuff.
Clicking the smash button.
And come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where examine the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.
See ya.